Rangers win the World Series!
He struck him out looking! It's over!
Well, so much for 162-0, but nevertheless, the Rangers close out opening weekend pretty strong and pretty good looking. Welcome into Bleav in Texas Rangers, everybody. I'm your host, Mitch Vareldis, as we are now done with the opening weekend in Major League Baseball. And for the Rangers, after such an explosive performance, we'll call it, on Saturday, they kind of ended it with an unfortunate outing today, Sunday. That's when I'm taping this. Maybe you're hearing this the day after as you're getting ready for the upcoming series. But we'll start with Sunday's outing. So the Rangers lose to the Cubs 9-5 to close out the home opening stand. And now they're 2-1 on the season as a result. Of course, they've only played 3 games. This one was a game where the Rangers very much got back into it with the bats. The pitching kind of set them back from the get-go. It also resulted in this, the reason as to why they lost, but the pitching set them back from the get-go. So let's talk about Jon Gray for a second. His final line, as I'm pulling it up right now, 3 2/3 innings, 7 hits, 5 runs, 4 of them earned. There was some very rough defensive outfield performances today on both sides. Leody Taveras had it very, very rough out there in center. That's the unearned run you see there. 3 walks, 2 strikeouts, and allowed a home run to Christopher Morel, who hit a 3-run homer in the opening frame. And that kind of set the tone for most of the afternoon, I should say, because John wasn't necessarily sharp. There was a lot of hard hit balls, even on outs. Like even on some of the flyouts, the contact was very, very hard off of John. And look, in fairness to him, he's the one who said it after the game. Quote, "I'll definitely find a way to get back out there and make some noise. I mean, that was pretty weak and pathetic, so it's going to be a lot better." Close quote. He said it for us. But at the same time, there is a significant investment in Jon Gray to be a key part of this rotation. And it has been emphasized more so because of the lack of starting depth right now, with Michael Lorenzen still ramping up in AAA. He had his first outing, I believe, yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, for AAA. Then you've got Max Scherzer, Jacob deGrom, and Tyler Mahle all on the injured list right now. So Jon Gray, as far as a veteran arm in that rotation, it was pivotal for him to pitch well today, and that just wasn't the case. I will say, though, as far as the pitching is concerned, the middle frames were very well handled by Jose Urena and Yeri Rodriguez. They combined for 4 1/3 innings, allowed 2 hits, 3 walks, so the control was a little iffy, but they got 4 strikeouts in total. So through that 4 1/3 innings after Jon Gray, the Cubs had a total of 5 base runners and no runs and struck out 4 times. Like, that's pretty good to see. That's what we'd want to see after a rough outing on the mound. But everybody's talking about how it ended, and justifiably so. But José Leclerc comes in for the 9th inning. It is a tie game. And José Leclerc leaves unable to record the final out. In every situation correction, it wouldn't have been the final out. It would have just pushed things to the bottom of the 9th inning. At that time, the game was tied 5-5. He could not get that final out. The bases were loaded. Everything was going the way of the Cubs at that point. As I'm trying to pull up exactly what happened in that 9th inning, because it really did not go well for Jose. So he gets Dansby Swanson to fly out, but then Michael Busch walks. He walked on 6 pitches. So he found the zone a couple of times, but then he missed the other 4. Nico Hoerner singled Busch to second, so station to station. And then Mike Tauchman walked and the bases were loaded. And you're thinking, oh boy, here we go. Jose, can you please just hunker down, find the zone, get the guy out? And in fairness to Jose, he did force the ground ball for pinch hitter Miles Mastrobuoni. And Marcus Semien went home for the force out for the second out. Now, maybe part of that was the way Marcus was positioned. Maybe it was they wanted to guarantee that they weren't going to allow another run if the double play weren't to be successful. Whatever the reason, that's what happened. And it resulted with a bases loaded walk of Ian Happ. And then the Cubs ran away with it from there. This is rough for Jose because the expectation is that he's going to be the ninth inning guy. And today he was presented, granted, a hold situation, not a save situation, but he was granted a high leverage situation and he failed. He failed pretty badly. He finished with 3 walks in those 2/3 innings. 3 walks. I know he had a magical and a very effective October and November for Texas. Tonight, and I was joking about it with some of the members of the Dallas Sports Fans Discord tonight, or today as we were watching the game. He looked like July Jose. He looked like Jose that was middle of the season, mid-form. He wasn't as efficient or sharp as he was during the postseason. A lot of stuff didn't work out today, most of it the pitching side. But if we want to be fair to the pitching, there were quite a few moments on offense that it could have gone the way of the Rangers. And multiple times they were presented with opportunities that they could not take advantage of. For example, go back a half inning. Marcus Semien grounds out, and Leota Taveras goes to second base. And here comes Wyatt Langford. And I love Wyatt Langford to death. He had one amazing hit today. He had one amazing sliding catch. I guess we're jumping on Wyatt watch, but that's okay. But this would have been, man, you could put the Cubs away and set up Jose nicely for the bottom and the top of the ninth. And he struck out looking. In fairness to Wyatt, he did work it to 8 pitches. But he took a fastball just off of the heart of the plate, nearly right down the pipe. He just let it go. There was another situation where Wyatt was on base and Adolis Garcia could not bring him home. He struck out. There was another situation where Josh Young had just tripled with 2 outs, so 90 feet from home, and Adolis Garcia got underneath the baseball and couldn't get him home. So a couple of times in this game, the Rangers had chances to make this game theirs offensively to support the rough outing from the pitching, and that didn't happen. Here's what else I'm curious to see. How different would this approach have been pitching-wise if Josh Sborz, Kirby Yates, and David Robertson didn't all pitch literally the day before? And we'll dive deeper into the Saturday game in just a second, but that was a close game up until the latter frame. So as a result, you've got rookie Cody Bradford, on the mound. He was okay. And then as a result of it being a close game, you have to go to your high leverage relievers to make sure it remains a close game. But then in a situation like today, where you actually needed your high leverage relievers as the game was very tight towards the end, or it would have been nice to save Jose from having to use the 9th inning, they weren't available. And it's early in the season, so I'm not advocating for pitch a guy back-to-back days. I'm absolutely do not do that if it's me. But it is kind of a bummer that it couldn't work out that way for them. It is kind of a bummer that they couldn't alter the back end just a little bit to approach it differently tonight, going with this afternoon with a tie game. And instead, we got what we got. And it happens. Let's touch on Wyatt Watch. Wyatt Watch. We're working on getting some sounders and stuff, but Wyatt Watch in the Sunday game, he played in left field. He hit second in the order. So that's significant because that's the highest that he's hit in the batting lineup so far this season. And it was his first time that he was not the designated hitter. He was in the outfield. And then, of course, he makes an incredible sliding catch. Like, is there anything this kid can't do? Seriously. So I'm based in Arizona right now. Corbin Carroll just finished up his rookie season last year. The thing about Corbin was when the Diamondbacks officially made it that he was part of the 26-man roster, They also extended him that offseason. They gave him this massive contract extension. The impact that Corbin Carroll brought in his first season was tangible and immediately recognized, not just among the team, but across the league. Wyatt Langford is having the exact same impact that Corbin Carroll had for Arizona this year for Texas. He's become an instant threat in the order. He's already flashed a little bit of leather. He's flashed speed. Do you see how fast he ran on that triple today? Wyatt Langford is already proving that it was absolutely correct of this front office to put him on the major league roster despite any sort of MLB affiliate ball experience after his days at Florida. What an absolute bravo move it has been so far to keep Wyatt Langford on this 26-man roster. An absolute bravo move. All right, enough of the bad. Let's talk about some good. So Saturday. Oh my gosh, Saturday was an absolute thumping of the Cubs. Didn't start that way, but the scoreboard does say 11-2. The scoreboard also says that the Rangers put up 6 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning to set up that what was eventually an 11-2 win. So to my point earlier about the bullpen is that they were used in situations all the way through the 8th inning. Like looking at the box last night, Josh Sborz pitched the 6th, Robertson the 7th, and Kirby Yates the 8th. And then in the 9th inning, they had Brock Burke wrap things up because the game was already out of reach. So they figured, all right, let's get Brock in there. Let's give him some pitches so that he can get warmed up for the season. But that bottom of the 8th inning was spectacular in helping make things easy for Texas to get that second consecutive win. As far as the bats were concerned, 3 home runs total by the Rangers. Adolis Garcia's second of the season, Josh Young's first. And Jared Walsh, who's really the player of the game from Saturday, in my opinion. Jared Walsh went 3 for 5, scored 3 times, drove in 2. And he was I believe it was a triple. Yes, a triple away from hitting the cycle in his Texas Rangers debut. And I tell you what, he somewhat carried that over into today's game. He was once again in the lineup. He was 1 for 4 with a run scored. So a slight downtick compared to his debut for the Rangers, but still, he looks like 2021 Jared Walsh. And this is something that I emphasized on the preview pod a couple of weeks ago, is if you could get this Jared Walsh, then the Rangers are in a perfect situation while also in a perfect predicament. Like in the Discord chat that I was in today with the Dallas sports fans, there was conversation about, all right, well, how can we get Jared Walsh's bat into the lineup when Nathaniel Lowe comes back from the injured list? It's obviously something they don't have to worry about right now, but maybe it becomes a greater problem should Walsh continue to replicate these performances when, say, they go to Tampa Bay this upcoming week in the next couple of days. Can you get the best out of Jared Walsh now while you have him and turn it into either value or value him in a way that you make him want to stay here or stay with Texas, right? Like, I would think right now that everybody's super duper high on the idea of having Jared Walsh on this team, given how well he's performed in a very small sample size. But a lot of the stuff about Jared Walsh's performance they're good on the stats too. Like all 3 of his hits were over 108 miles an hour. Or excuse me, I think it was over 105 miles an hour. All 3 of his hits were over 105 miles an hour off the bat. And the softest hit one, air quotes, softest, was the one that he hit over the fence. Like, if anything, Jared Walsh is very much showing not just in the performance, but rather the way that the ball jumps off his bat. Like, we're getting the Jared Walsh that you could have only hoped for when you take a flyer sort of deal on him. So that was really good to see. We're hoping that we get to see a little bit more of Jared like this, especially because the Rangers are going to need it as much as they can against right-handers while Nathaniel Lowe remains out. And at the same time, Ezekiel Duran actually performed really well today. He got on base twice. Both of the hits did not leave the infield. He's fast, man. He's ridiculously fast. He played shortstop today. Corey Seager got the day off. There's nothing wrong with him. It was just a routine day off. But then the day before, Duran actually had the night off the day before on Saturday. But you know who didn't have the night off on Saturday was Cody Bradford, who allowed the Dansby Swanson home run in the top of the second inning. And you're thinking, geez, he's just young. He's not super duper ready for this. But props to Cody, because those were the only 2 runs that he allowed, and those were the only 2 runs that the Cubs scored. Final line for Cody: 5 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, a walk, 6 strikeouts for the young lefty. And of course, he collected the win, as the game was in the Rangers' control before he exited for his performance. He threw 76 pitches, 48 of them were strikes. And I tell you what, to follow up Nathan Eovaldi and to provide that performance, good on him. Because as we emphasized at the top of the pod, talking about John Gray, you're going to need strong starting pitching performances from guys that you wouldn't normally expect to get strong pitching performances from. And Cody Bradford fits that mold of somebody who's being given the opportunity now, will go out and make the most of it. You know, go out there and show everybody that you belong at this level. Show everybody that you can even force your way into, you know, a position where you're pitching late in games or in the postseason, right? Show that you belong here. And I thought Cody did a very, very good job of showing that he belonged in his first outing. Will he replicate it? And should he not replicate it, how much longer until we get Max Scherzer? But it was very great to see. I thought there were a couple of rough spots for Cody, but the way he settled in after allowing the Dansby Swanson home run, that was what stood out to me the most. He was very composed, and it made it easy to continue to root for him. Of course, we're rooting for him, right? We're all believing in the Texas Rangers. That was good to see. And I hope that it carries over into start number 2, because if I'm not mistaken, start number 2 is against the Astros. You know, our division rivals, our state rivals even. Wyatt Watch from Saturday. Wyatt Watch. I'm going to have a booming voice for that, I promise. It won't be my voice, though. So, Langford on Saturday hit 6th in the order. He was the designated hitter. He finished 2 for 5 with a run scored. The 2, both of them being singles. So, nothing extravagant, but we can't emphasize enough how good he's looked this early on. And we hope that it carries, because sometimes it's easy for a lot of these younger players to just run out of gas towards the end of the year. But Wyatt looks awesome to start the year. And the best part about today was the fact that we got to see him play defensively, and we got to see him actually provide some offense as well. Like, I'm still thinking about that triple. I'm curious to see how he gets used defensively. Like, will he get even more reps in left field going forward? And will that improve his defensive prowess? We'll see. So before Sunday's game, the Bally Sports Southwest broadcast, so shout out to them. The Bally Sports Southwest broadcast got to sit down with General Manager Chris Young. And I'm only going to pass along what he said regarding the injuries, because I figure that's the most important part. That's what everybody will want to know. I'm not sure how new this information is necessarily, but it does make a difference when it's coming from the voice of the GM. So as far as the 3 pitchers, because I think those are the ones that everybody's really focusing on, Max Scherzer, and I'm paraphrasing, so do not take this as direct quote example, but he said that Scherzer's in baseball build-up mode, and they're targeting the end of May or even the beginning of June. But Chris Young also mentioned with a caveat that anything can happen. Wouldn't it be such a shot in the arm if they can get Max Scherzer back before the end of May? You go 1 month into the season and then boom, here's Max Scherzer back in the rotation ready to help out. He was missed in the postseason. Well, the World Series, I should say. He pitched through the postseason. He was missed in the World Series. Like, it would have been nice for him to have one of those starts or one of those high leverage outings that we sometimes see in the World Series where they'll warm up the starters and then the starters go in because they just want the best pitchers out there. So it's a bummer he couldn't play much longer before he got hurt, but I'm curious to see what a full season with the forever ageless, it feels like. I mean, he's what? He's got to be 40. He's got to be 42 by now, right? If I'm not mistaken. I'm looking it up right now, so forgive me. Oh, he's 39 years old. He's not even 40 yet. That's crazy. He's pitching like he's 30. Like 30 years old. And he's throwing like he's 26 because he could still hit that high velocity. Like, it's crazy. As far as Tyler Mahle goes, general manager Chris Young with Bally Sports Southwest again. He said mid to late July for Mahle. Now, Mahle is recovering from Tommy John, if I'm not mistaken. So they don't want to rush him back. They just want to make sure that he's fully healthy, ready to go, good to, throw from 60 feet, 90 feet, etc. before he gets back on a mound and eventually contributes to this rotation. And then as far as Jacob deGrom, this one's going to take the longest, but they've also got a high investment in Jacob and they don't feel any rush to, force him back onto the mound, right? Like, in fairness, he was a key contributor to the start of the Rangers season, of course, but the Rangers still got to the World Series and won the World Series without him, lest we forget. That's not to diminish Jacob whatsoever. That is to say that the Rangers can survive until what Young is saying as August is what he's wishing and hoping for. The Rangers can probably survive without him. And if anything, they showed us last year that, yes, they absolutely can survive and advance without him. But it will be good to get him back because they signed him to essentially be the top end of this rotation. And when this rotation is fully healthy, I cannot wait to see what this rotation looks like when it's fully healthy. When you've got Max Scherzer at the top, and then Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, Michael Lorenzen maybe, Cody Bradford maybe, Andrew Heaney, Dane Dunning, John Gray. Like, when the postseason comes around, you've established the top three, and then it's just whoever the fourth best guy is gets that last spot. And I think that's pretty nice to think about if you're already fast forwarding everything to October, even though we're not even in the month of April yet. It's still March 31st. When this rotation is fully healthy, it'll be interesting to see how well they perform and if age/injury history really starts to kick in. Because we haven't necessarily seen the age part kick in. The injury history has very much been prevalent as far as this rotation is concerned. All right, before we wrap things up, the opening series is now done. So what's next for the Rangers? Let's take a look as we pull up the calendar here. So next up for Texas, they're going to be traveling, or they're probably already traveling or have traveled south to Tampa Bay, technically St. Petersburg, because that's where the ballpark is. 3 games against the defending American League East champion Rays. And I tell you what, there are some very good pitching matchups upcoming, or at least pitching matchups that I'm going to be keeping a close eye on. Monday, April 1st, Dane Dunning will go against Ryan Pepio. Pepio was acquired by the Rays from the Dodgers in the trade that sent Tyler Glasnow to Los Angeles, They also got prospect Johnny DeLuca in that trade, but I think DeLuca's done for the year, so we won't get to see him. But for Pepio, this is now, he's a young pitcher, and he just got traded to Tampa Bay. So if I were to predict anything, I would assume that Pepio's going to have a good day on the mound, but that's just because of, history. That's game one. Game two on April 2nd on Tuesday will be Andrew Heaney's first start, and he's going to go against Zach Eflin, who is the Tampa Bay Rays' number one starter. Eflin already has been roughed up this year. He's already got an 0-1 record and a 9.53 ERA. He got bit hard by the Toronto Blue Jays in his opening start in a game that they lost 8-2. But he's pitched at an all-star caliber level for Tampa and even in the season prior with Philly. So I'm curious to see how he does against this Texas lineup. Granted, the last time the Rangers played in Tampa Bay, it went pretty darn well, as we all know. And the final game of that series, this is by far the most intriguing pitching matchup as far as the caliber of the two players. That'll be Nate's second go through the rotation, and he's going to go against Aaron Chevali. Chevali is who the Rays got from the Cleveland Guardians in exchange for prospect Kyle Manzardo, who's a first baseman. And Chevali had a great opening start against the Blue Jays, a 1-0 record and a 1.50 ERA to start the year. He threw 6 innings of ball against Toronto and held them to just the 1 run in his appearance. But it's going to be very much the pitching matchups. That's not to say that the Rays don't have hitting. They just, I mean, I look at their lineup and their roster, and they just feel a little bit weaker than in years past. And maybe that's because I'm immediately early doubting them, and some of the losses that they have had this year so far have been significant. I mean, they lost 2-8. They lost 8-2 in game one. Then they won 8-2 the next day. Then they won 5-1 on Saturday. And then they lost 9-2 today, the 31st, Saturday. Just a very confusing start to the year for the Rays as far as that's concerned. Now, they still have Randy Arozarena, who's always a threat in the middle of the order. Yandy Diaz has had an excellent start to the season. He is scorching hot right now. Brandon Lau, I know, has got the power form back. He had a home run the other day. Isaac Paredes and Jose Caballero are already making early contributions for them as well. So this is not a team to take lightly. And look, if anything, their history has shown that they are not a team to take lightly. So these are going to be 3 very important games for the Rangers here upcoming that we will react to once the series is over. We'll probably find a spot to react to that series on the upcoming off day, the Thursday, or even just after the Wednesday game and then set it up for the Thursday. One of the two. But that's what's next for the Rangers is heavier competition. Like it's not an easy start to the season for Texas. So get your licks in now, because you're going to need to get those same licks in later in the season. So make the most of it. Hey, if you enjoy listening to Bleav in Texas Rangers and you want more from Bleav in Texas Rangers or myself, check out the YouTube page. Just search Bleav in Texas Rangers, or you can search my name, Mitchell Vareldes, on YouTube. Or you could look for me on Twitter at SwingAnnaMitch. You could look for me on Instagram at Mitch Says Hey. Or you can always email me your thoughts or suggestions at mitchv55@gmail.com. It's up to you. However you want to reach out, if you want to reach out. And if you like what you're listening to, be sure you follow it wherever you get your podcasts, rate it, like it, subscribe, however you want to do it. But I always appreciate the support, and I appreciate that you all enjoy baseball as well. That's it for this edition. We will be back in the middle of the week to react to how the Rangers did against the Tampa Bay Rays. But until then, Bleav in the Texas Rangers.